Everyone wants to talk about how the CyHawk game is always a low-scoring, close-game affair. However, I think this year Iowa State has the chance, the opportunity, if you will, to score more points than the number of yards Iowa was able to throw for last week. And we're talking about why today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in to Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for being here every single day, making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcasting platform. Be sure to hit subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. I don't care what happens in this game. It's always going to be a Cyclone state, but now we can really prove it with that subscribe button completely free down below. Today, we're talking about the CyHawk game, of course, my final thoughts and predictions on this. And then Jake Crane of Crane & Company is going to join me in the second and third segment and really break this down from an outsider perspective. This guy knows ball. You're going to want to stick around for that, obviously. But first, before we dive into all of that and potentially what you're not expecting us to dive into, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. Now, obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, you've noticed I'm wearing something a little different than usual. I have broke this out in the past, I believe. I'm wearing the cardinal and gold fit, the red suit, if you will, because this is a big event. Iowa State bringing Iowa into the building to absolutely wallop them. I will get my prediction out of the way. I think Iowa State wins this game, and I think they score a lot of points. Now, is it going to be close, or does Iowa State blow them out of the water? I think is a different story, and I will get to that exact number prediction at the end of this show, or segment, I suppose. But I really think that Iowa State has the means to score a ton of points in this one. We talked with Trent Condon yesterday, and I'm learning that across the board, everyone I talk to seems to fall into the same camp of, well, the CyHawk game is always about a 35-point affair between the two teams. That's what's going to happen again this weekend. Can Iowa State hold Iowa to less than 21 points? The obviously magic number. Iowa performs at an actually really ridiculous number when they score 21 points. Can they hold them? And will Iowa State find a way to win this game? Surprisingly a favorite, blah, blah, blah. I genuinely cannot see a world where Iowa State doesn't score a bunch of points. Like there is a alternate universe out there, as Dr. Strange says. Like there's all of these infinite universes, and one of them, Iowa State, probably doesn't score 55 points. But I do think in this game there is the possibility they can. I think the Iowa State, with what Rocco Becht, Ben Bramer, Gabe Burkle, Brett Eskelson, Carson Hansen, Abu Sama, all the guys, what they bring to the table is a ton of possibility to score this football. Now, all the Iowa fans aren't going to want to hear that, and I'm sure that there are going to be even some Iowa State fans who don't necessarily agree with me. But I've come to the conclusion that this is just what I think. I'm not going to handicap myself anymore. I keep trying to play both sides of the coin. No, here we're going just call it in the air. It's tails. Boom. Iowa State score, and I'm not going to put a specific number on it, but I think Iowa State's going to put up a fair amount of points in this one. And I feel like I probably should put a number on it. So I'm going to say more than 28, more than 4 touchdowns in this game. Total points, obviously. If they score 3 touchdowns and 3 field goals, that would also be more than 28. But you get what I'm saying. I think Iowa State's going to be in the red zone a lot, going to score a lot. Maybe they'll hit some deep shots as well. We've talked a lot about specific positions in this lead up to this game. I think Iowa State's better at basically every position. There are a few keys we've talked about. Obviously, I think Iowa State needs to stop the run for Iowa and force them to throw. If they're able to do that, kind of the second key, you know how you put the first key in, you turn it, and that unlocks the glass cover that opens up the panic button, like hitting the panic button. If Iowa State can get to Gronowski early, and I'll talk about this with Jake Crane, I think that's going to be huge, because if you can get in his ear right away and force him to be skittish and not sure of his reads and how much time he has in the pocket, you've completely shut down Iowa. And that does sound a little bit like, well, if Iowa State's able to score more points, they're going to win this game. Like, yeah, but those aren't crazy asks. Shut down the run and get to the quarterback are relatively normal asks. It's just that Iowa State has a 17.7% pressure rate for the first 2 weeks, and that's not where I want them to be. yesterday with Condon, I said, I think that I'm okay with Iowa State bringing some pressure through the linebacking unit or maybe off of the edge, just because I want them to instill that fear right away in this one. Another point that I wanted to bring up in this kind of quick fire breakdown is I think there is a very real chance, and this plays into Iowa State scoring a lot of points, that Iowa State kind of really takes some chances here. Not anything too crazy, no triple reverse throwback wheel routes per se, but I do think that what Mauser said this week of, learning that it's not always going to be a super methodical drive and understanding that Rocco, if we put him in a position where we kind of force him to perform, he does it. I think they're going to ask Rocco, like, can you go win this game for us? And that's where I want this team to be. I want them to have the capability to really go out and get games, go out and just snag it. Because sometimes it does feel like, and I'm sure you can agree with me, let me know in the comments or at Nick_Marv on Twitter, sometimes it feels like Iowa State just lets the game kind of happen in some sense. Okay, I'm not meaning that in a dig by any means, but it's pretty rare that I feel, it's not never, but rare that I feel like Iowa State goes out and just snags a game, like just takes control. We're taking this one. You're not getting away with the W here. And I think that if Iowa State can find a way to do that against Iowa and the rest of the season, they're a Big 12 favorite. I think they're a playoff team at the very least. Okay, probably semifinalist in the entire scheme of college football. To talk on the Iowa game specifically, another point that I'd like to bring up is how important this game is. I do think that Iowa State has to win this game. We talk about that later in the show. But from my perspective, this is more so than from the college football playoff committee. This is a momentum game for Iowa State. We talked about the game against Kansas State, and can they, win that game? Because if they don't, the flight back is going to be like not great. It's not going to be ideal. This game feels like it has so much charge to it that it could flatten your tires if you don't come away with this win. There are a lot of other things in this game. This is a great kind of feeler game for Iowa State, measuring stick game, if you will. You're not playing South Dakota, which is by no means a walk in the park, but still FCS. Right? Like, we want to play some Power 4 teams here before we get into the Big 12 play. And I think that this is a great opportunity, yes, but also kind of feel like you have to come away with the win here. Iowa State will bounce back, okay? And I am 100% certain of that. If Iowa State, I'm not even going to finish that sentence, but if it were to happen, Iowa State would have no problem bouncing back, resetting, coming back in week 3. Like, it's inevitable, right? But I do think that you gain a lot of momentum by winning this game. I think you start the season 3-0, which is obviously you want to have the goose egg in the second leg of that column, 3-0. I don't see a way where losing this game is completely okay. There are going to be teams that it's like, well, losing's never ideal, but like, at least we're not in conference play type of thing. That's not what I see here at all. And I'm sure that that's just the same thing. Like, well, if you score more points, you're going to win the game. Like, no, duh. Everyone wants to win the CyHawk game. Get this guy off the screen. What is he even? Who gave him a microphone? Tax podcast equipment. Like, I get it. But I think that that's something that a lot of people, they just kind of subconsciously maybe think. We should point that out. Like, this is a big one. And I know it. I'm sitting here nervous already. Or the day before, and I'm already sitting here just like antsy. Like, I got to get into Jack Trice Stadium and watch this unfold because I think Iowa State's the better team. To wrap things up here, I do think that Iowa State wins this game. I can't slice it any way where Iowa wins this one. I feel almost too confident. Trent Condon asked me yesterday, is it weird that Iowa State is the favorite? It's not super comfortable. I'm not going to lie to you. If you want to cut your sandwich in half, or if you want to eat just the crust or whatever, however you slice it, to me, Iowa State's the favorite. I think they're better on offense. I think they have a lot of high end on defense. There are some areas that we've talked about, but I think they have the capability to win on defense. And I think for the first time in a long time, or at least significantly, they're better on special teams. This team is better than Iowa. What will happen in the game? Who knows? Because it's a rivalry. And I've said over and over, in rivalry games, the playing field is leveled. There is so much charge. Jack Trice is going to be so loud that the sound waves are actually going to disperse the clouds from above the stadium, if there are any. I know the weather's supposed to be beautiful. That is what is going into this game. So it does have the ability to kind of, almost murky up the waters a little bit. But I think at the end of the day, I'm going to go ahead and with my prediction here, and I'm going to put it, I'm keeping my predictions for the rest of the year. I'm going to go ahead and take Iowa State. Obviously, I think they cover, and it's not. I think it's 2.5 or 3.5 right now. Not a crazy line, so that's not the crazy part. I think Iowa State wins this one. I'm going to call it 35-20. Weird numbers. I don't love that there's no field goal in there. I think Conradi does kick one, but 35-20 feels like a good number. So I'm going to go with that. Maybe it's 5 field goals, 15 points. Who knows? 18 points. Who knows? My point is, I think Iowa State wins this one quite handily. I think my final prediction will be 35-20. Big win for Iowa State in Jack Trice, kind of breaking the curse a little bit. But I don't know if Jake Crane feels the same way. So you're going to have to stick around to find out. Jake Crane of Crane & Company going to help me break down the game coming up right here after this. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For Iowa State, I think it was by far and away Kyle Conradi or Rocco Becht. Obviously, both record-breaking performances against South Dakota. So which one do you want to take? It's really just up to you. I think the momentum that Conradi gained from that kick, the confidence is huge. But obviously, Rocco Becht going 19-20 is hard to look away from as well. Just like Rocco or Conradi delivered for Iowa State, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You can save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18, November 18th. Today's episode is also brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive, and that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, and performance to deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every detail. As an athlete focuses on detail, Mazda does the same, focusing on every single detail, from metallic accents to hand-stitched Napa leather. You can feel it in the moment you get behind the wheel. The smooth handling, intuitive controls, and standard all-wheel drive in every crossover SUV. It's the small details that make the big plays. And just like there's more to every player, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, joining us now, Jake Crane, host of Crane & Company, a show that really covers it all and does it in an in-depth way. This guy knows ball. This guy knows what he's talking about. You can hear it in his accent. So get buckled up and ready for a breakdown of the CyHawk game that you haven't seen before. Jake, love the hat, love the collar shirt. Did you just get off the golf course? Are you ready to talk ball here?
Man, I wish. The last time I played pretty well, so I don't think I'm going to play again for a while because that rarely happens. And then if you play well, you get your hopes up you're going to play well the next time, and that's really when I play my worst. But no, I'm just excited. The season's here. Obviously, you can see my 7th-month-old is too behind me. Mama had to go into work, so Dad's pulling a little
double duty
for double duty here in the afternoon. But no, just obviously I know Iowa State's excited about what's gone on so far. You know, the big win over Kansas State. Looking good against an inferior opponent week 2. But like everybody else out there, man, I'm just I'm glad it's back and ready to watch these teams kind of grow and see that flower blossom from week 1 to the end of this thing.
Oh, yeah. No, the way that this season is starting off for Iowa State is obviously phenomenal, right? We kind of picked up where we left off last season, but I think across the board, college football has been electric. And I don't know if I can say exactly that for Iowa. We'll talk a little bit more in depth on Iowa here as we go. She's willing to, if she's willing to give her takes, she go ahead.
She's the daughter of an Auburn and an Alabama fan, so she's definitely down to talk college football. But we'll save that for a little bit.
Okay, yeah, give her some time. Let her really process it. I kind of wanted to start with keys to victory. This is something that obviously everyone talks about. We've been just hammering this all week long. I think that the key to victory for Iowa State is to stop the run and then therefore force Mark Gronowski to throw. I don't think he can throw based on the performance against Albany. Are you going in the same boat, or do you think that Iowa State can win it a different way?
Well, you know, when you look at kind of the dichotomy of these teams and what we've seen so far, you know, Iowa looks similar to what we've seen from the past in Iowa. I wouldn't sleep on Gronowski too much just because he does have some gamer in him. But, if I'm looking at a key to victory on both sides of the ball for Iowa State, first off, defensively, it's getting Iowa State off schedule and turning them into a passing team, not only on third down. A lot of people think it's just third down, but man, 2nd and 8, you line it up and running power or running outside zone or whatever can put you in a tough spot on third down. And Iowa State does a really good job of mixing fronts. They'll give you a decent amount of exotic looks and give you a couple different endings on both of them, which I think is what ultimately helped them win the game against Kansas State in pockets when the weather calmed down. And then on the other side of the ball on offense, it's really just playing clean. And I hate to say just don't turn the ball over and don't get yourself penalized. But you do feel like in this game, with this offense going against the other offense, who can be more explosive? It's obviously Iowa State. So if you don't, Iowa lives off sacks and turnovers. That's what they do. If Iowa State's able to play clean, I feel like eventually they're going to be able to move the ball. And even though I'm going to take the under, Iowa State, to me, if there's going to be a race to 17, I would take Iowa State.
Yeah, it makes me feel a little bit better about Iowa State. And you mentioned obviously penalties in there. Iowa State's been really clean. I believe 4 penalties through the first 2 games, and that's a promising sign. But Iowa, obviously a tough team to play in what will be a very rowdy Jack Trice. You kind of answered my question here, but I'm going to kind of repitch it to you. Can Iowa State just not lose this game, or do they have to go out and win this one?
Well, obviously you never want to frame it to the players that way, but that's the best part about being fans and in the media is that you can frame it that way. I mean, I would say if both teams go out there and play a clean game, I would trust Iowa State to win it. If Iowa State played their C+ game and Iowa played their B game, I think Iowa State would still have a decent chance to win it. So you don't want to go out there and play not to make a mistake. But with what Matt Campbell teaches, and I coached in the state of Iowa and clinicked up there with him and some of his guys, the discipline on that team, I think, is the difference. Not that Iowa isn't disciplined, but Iowa State takes it to a totally new level. So, yes, you go out there and you play clean. You make smart decisions. You don't have big penalties in big situations. You play clean in the special teams game. That's another thing. You cannot give Iowa life on kick returns, on block punts, on punt returns, on missed field goals, on missed extra points, things like that, then yes, I would take Iowa State, and that's why I like them to win the game.
Yeah, when you look at the special teams, I think that's an area that Iowa State hasn't had the edge in recent years. And obviously, Weegan, with what he did last year, was pretty unreal. I've seen that guy up close and personal. He is way faster than you would even ever imagine. This year, though, I kind of think Iowa State might have a little bit of it's very small, but an edge in the special teams department. Conrarty's 63-yarder. It's hard to look away from that. But Aiden Flora, what he's been doing, if he's healthy, can Iowa State win it through the special teams? Something that I think every Iowa fan does not want to hear.
Yeah, well, if it comes down to the special teams plays, and again, I'm, former special teams coordinator. Nobody cares about it more than me.
Hey,
but if it comes down to that, then I think something went wrong somewhere else for Iowa State, and they need to use it to bail them out, as opposed to, help them playing a great game and it's still that tight. Again, you go back to the Kansas State game, fumbling that punt early. I know Iowa State didn't cash it in, but it's just not making those mistakes and putting Iowa in situations and allowing themselves to jump off the cliff at the end of the day, for lack of a better comparison there. But yes, if I had to compare special teams units, I think it's safe to say you would trust Iowa State's more. And if you continue to go down this road, when you look at offense and defense and special teams in those 3 phases, I mean, you can make it. I've got a lot of respect for Phil Parker. You could make an argument for Iowa's defense maybe being a little bit better than Iowa State's. But outside of that, 2 of the 3 phases, I think, fall in the Cyclones' favor.
Yeah, it's crazy to hear that you can trust Iowa State's special teams.
I know, right? It's weird coming off the lips. But, I mean, look, I was back there with them in the Joe Houston days. So, I've seen every angle of this at Iowa State.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I think we're turning over a new leaf, and honestly on the up and to the right here. Looking at specific players, everyone wants to look at Dom Orange. I do think that the pass rush for Iowa State needs to be here. I believe the number is 17.7% pressure rate through the first 2 weeks. Abysmal. It's like second to last or something. I think that probably needs to be changed a little bit in this one. Outside of Dom, do you have a player you're looking at that can make a big impact here?
Man, it's hard to go outside of him because he's such a shop wrecker. We hear dual threat quarterbacks, right? We hear guys that can play both ways, like Travis Hunter. there's dual threat defensive linemen too. And when they're in the interior, that's when you really can find out, what a team's about. And look, I like the linebacking group that Iowa State has. I know last year the injury bug caught up to them, and they were basically and again, not trying to be disrespectful, but playing with the bottom of the barrel at that position. But when you have a guy that's able to play that nose the way that he does, it automatically makes your 3 down effective. And, you don't have to be a geometry major to realize that the closest point to the quarterback is the guy that's probably right over the center. So his ability to collapse the pocket and really ruin gap scheme runs, like what he did to Kansas State in any sort of gap scheme run for pretty much that entire game, it throws the timing off. It muddies everything up. It gets you out of a rhythm. So, I'd love to sit here and give you some, no name answer that nobody's finding, but it starts and stops with Big Citrus, which is also one of the most elite nicknames that I've ever seen in my life. So he's got a lot of stuff going for him. But, you talk about the pass rush, the pressure rate that you brought up. That is going to need to increase, and you can do some things out of the 3 down that are a little bit more exotic than obviously the true 4 down. One of the reasons that you do run that 3 down. But I don't know if this is a game where at the end of the day, the pass rush has to be amazing or you're going to get cooked through the air. I'd be much more inclined to say, you know what? Let's be really good against the run. Let's get them in 3rd down and 6 or more. And then we can mix coverages. If we want to send a pressure or 2, we can do that. But make Gronowski beat you through the air. Because at the end of the day, if he's able to do that, then sometimes you just got to tip your hat.
Oh, absolutely. And to kind of piggyback off of that, what we've seen from the linebacking core, like you mentioned, is miles ahead of where it was last season, largely due to those injuries. I think Iowa State with Dom Orange and that linebacking core can shut down the run. Can they get to Mark Gronowski is the question for me, because if we let him feel like he can throw it, the secondary is a question mark for me. And I know that Cyclone fans don't love to hear that. I've been on it all week. I don't want to get burnt over the top like we did against Kansas State. I know, again, back to Weegan, we saw his first receiving touchdown last week. He's got the speed to get over top. I think it's a possibility. I just want to get in Gronowski's ear early and make him feel like he's, kind of got the happy feet like he did in the first week. Coming right up with Jay Crane, we're going to talk about the future of Iowa State. How do they fare against the rest of the Big 12? How do they look in the college football playoff picture? But first, hey, Cyclone fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code FOOTBALL and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You could make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code FOOTBALL for a limited time 25 cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code FOOTBALL. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here. Yesterday got kicked off, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the entire app. 300. That is a lot. That is 100 more than 200. I love FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in as the live action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sunday. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Let's pivot a little bit here away from this game specifically while I've got you on the phone. I'm curious about the CyHawk rivalry from outside of the state of Iowa. Here, I am sick, and we're recording this on Thursday. I'm already nervous just because of how big this game is inside of the state. We saw Scott Document of The Athletic rank this at like 63 in the top rivalries in America. That was a disrespectful ranking. Yeah. Where does this fall in your guys' camp as obviously Bama, Tennessee is going to be up there?
Well, I may not be the best person to ask because I've lived in the state, I've coached there. So I know how important that game is from top to bottom, from side to side in that state. And I tell you, as somebody, again, that's from the state of Alabama, that has grown up in a state that has a huge in-state rivalry, I consider it the best in-state rivalry in the Iron Bowl. I always say, in comparison, you have to understand that in-state rivalry is different, because if you get in a fight with your neighbor, you can each go back to your own house. That's fine. But if you get in a fight with a family member, y'all got to go back in the same house. And that's what that in-state rivalry is about. And, whether you want to call it hatred or vitriol or whatever, I mean, you live with these people, right? You see them 365 days a year. You don't have to drive to another state to see it. So I've got a ton of respect for it. Now, would it be in my top 3 rivalries? I probably wouldn't put it in there, but I think it is one of the most underrated rivalries that we have. And really, when you look at the atmospheres that are played in these games, it never disappoints. So it's way up there for me, even compared to some in the South down here, because it seems like every team's got 4 different rivals down in the South. Again, I'm excited to see it. And God, I love the under. This is one of my favorite bets of the year.
Actually, this is a point that I've been making all week. I wonder if this is the year where it is a 40-47 final, just because of who knows. But that is the history of this game.
Nick, if it's a 47-40 final in this game, I'm going to start looking into space for meteors and comets. If that happens, I'm actually going to be worried that the white spikes are here if that happens.
Well, I might be doing the same. It would be completely off everyone's rocker for sure. And I think we can pivot into like the history of this, with that kind of comment, because it is so historically close and low scoring. Do you put a lot into the history of? I personally, it's tough, because if you're asking me Iowa State versus, South Dakota, the history last time they played was like 1959. No, it doesn't matter. That was last year, different team, whatever. This one, the history, I think, plays a little bit of a role just because of how big the rivalry is. And then you can go into the Big Noon Kickoff and Barstool, college football sports show, whatever it is that's there. There's so much around this game, the history and what's there now. Do you think that could impact to Saturday, I suppose?
Well, I think games like this impact the preparation. I think it's so hard to get guys laser focused every week of the season, believe it or not. Nick Saban has one of my favorite quotes. He's like, you can really get your guys up and playing at their best probably 3 to 4 times a year. And while the scores may not be crazy high, are these just, 47-40s like you mentioned, that doesn't mean that it's not a quality played game. And I think the attention to detail this week, because of the rivalry and the preparation from Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, is so tight and detailed that by the time you get to the game on Saturday, guys just want to let it loose. But the defenses are so locked in, and some offensive coordinators are afraid to make the big mistake, in the game that could cost you. But as far as what happened the year before or the year before that, I'm not a trends person. Every year's different. The schedule's different. The roster's different. The coaching staff is different. And a lot of the motivation, whereas if you lost the game last year and you want to get back, that's all for preparation. Because there's never been a time, if you've ever played this sport, where the ball was snapped in the middle of the play, you're like, man, we lost last year. I got to make this play. No, you're just playing. Where bulletin board material helps is in the preparation, because more times than not, you play like you practice that week.
Absolutely. It comes down to preparation for sure. I think in a game like this, you mentioned you can only maybe get up 3-4 times a year. Looking at Iowa State's schedule, let's assume they got up for Kansas State. First game of the season, overseas rivalry game, conference matchup. Looking at the rest of this schedule, I really only have 3 major games kind of circled left. Arizona State, BYU, and TCU, I think, are going to be major. Kansas, we can talk about. I'll ask you about Iowa State compared to the Big 12 the rest of the year. But for this game specifically, how important is it for Iowa State to win this? Can they drop this one? Obviously, it's non-conference. I'm looking at it from more of a momentum standpoint, vibes for the rest of the year. Campbell talked about losing that first game of the season and what that can do on the plane ride back type of thing. Is this a super big, like a quote-unquote must win, if you can even call it that?
Well, I with the new 12-team playoff, and I think it's going to be different than the way they picked last year. I do think a 9-3 SEC team is going to get in this season that didn't get in last year. To me, if you're in the Big 12 or the ACC, it almost feels like you pretty much got to go 11-1 if you're not going to win the conference. Let's say you don't get in, you lose one conference game, and it's kind of a car crash there at the end, and you're an 11-1 team that doesn't get in, kind of like Indiana, right? Last year, I know it was the Big Ten, but you feel like a win over not only a team like Iowa that, consistently wins 8-9 games. It would be a quality win. I feel like it pretty much is, because it's going to come down to if Iowa State doesn't get the automatic qualifier from winning the Big 12 conference, with all the carnage that could happen inside the conference. I would say it kind of feels that way. And I think a decent amount of Iowa State fans would agree with me, because at the end of the day, you don't want to be in one of those situations where you have the same record as a certain Big Ten team that you're fighting to get in over, but then you lost to a Big Ten team. Those are the little minute things that could keep you out.
Absolutely. The 12-team playoff is chaos, and it's not a great thing for Big 12 fans, even though our conference is kind of the most chaotic. Really quickly, as far as the Big 12 conference goes, where do you think Iowa State sits? Baylor, a team that a lot of people circled, lost to Auburn. I think Kansas does look surprisingly good. We'll see how they do against Missouri. TCU is a team to circle. We'll see how, outside of Bill Belichick, how they do. And then, of course, the other front runners like ASU and BYU. I think Iowa State is like the top team right now, but obviously I'm wearing the Cardinal and gold suit. So it's like, you kind of got to.
Well, when you look at the Big 12, it's not crazy at all to say Iowa State's the top team. We just had Tim Brando on our show, and he has Iowa State ranked 3rd in the country right now.
I was getting there.
Check that out on our channel over there. But when you look around the rest of the Big 12, who's proven more than Iowa State? You lead off the season by beating a Kansas State team that a lot of people have a lot of respect for. At the end of the day, when I look at the schedule, and then you look at a team like Texas Tech, they scored a ton of points last week, but we still don't know. A lot of these Big 12 teams, we have no idea about. I think if you're a Baylor fan, I wouldn't be too down. I don't think Baylor's horrible. It shocked me that Auburn went on the road and played that well, to be honest. But when you look at the other teams there, I picked Utah to win the Big 12 before the beginning of the season. They looked great against UCLA. I think maybe Iowa State and Utah have proven the most out of any teams in the Big 12 right now that are undefeated. So, yeah, you could make a good argument. I would still say Utah, but when you look at the schedule, I like the way it works out for Iowa State because, again, Utah, Kansas State, Texas Tech, all these teams, they play each other. And Arizona State, I'm telling you right now, I don't believe, and to be honest with you, I think this game in Starkville may get a little weird.
Ooh, okay. I know there is a little bit of a nasty line on that one. I think it's 6.5. You mentioned what Tim Brando did as far as putting Iowa State at 3. I think that's very accurate, and the rankings are all over the place. Really quickly, do you think Iowa State should be ranked higher? Do you kind of agree with him as far as the rest of the season? Because Iowa State started so low, they have to fight their way up. I don't love how rankings are working, but it's part of the game.
This is why preseason rankings are stupid. Like the fact that we don't put out a ranking system or that we don't wait until week 3 to put out a ranking system. Kind of why. I know why. I'm in sports media. It gives us something to talk about and something to yell at and debate and this, that, or the other. It's just red meat for the base. But at the end of the day, again, go around college football. When you look at the big matchups that we've had, Iowa State, Kansas State, LSU, Clemson, Ohio State, Texas, Alabama, Florida State, Miami, Notre Dame, you go down the list, Auburn, Baylor. We really don't know about a ton of teams outside of the teams that have played some big matchups. And we're really basically through 2 weeks if you count week 0, obviously. So, yeah, why would Iowa State not be higher? They've proven more than most teams out there. If we're going to be data-driven, right, if that's what we're going to try and say we are, these polls are going to be data-driven, well, then by God, go on the data. Just because you pull Portland State's pants down and spank them in front of the middle of Walmart doesn't mean that you're the best team in the country.
Oh, I couldn't have said it better myself. Jake Crane, thank you so much for making the time and breaking this game down for me. And I suppose all the listeners out there. I just had a lot of fun really getting – it seems like you're on my side more than the Hawkeyes. But
well, as somebody that got the Iowa State, Kansas State pick wrong, I ain't picking against y'all again. I can promise you that.
You're on the right side of history if you follow Iowa State the rest of the way. Crane and Company putting out unbelievable content right now. Can you break down for everyone that's listening now what they can expect? How often? What do you guys cover?
Well, Nick, first off, thanks for being a great sport. Like I said, my wife had an emergency call to run into work, so I'm on daddy duty here, and my light goes out. Looks like we're about to get ascended into a spaceship that Scotty's going to beam us up. But no, look, if you love ball, I always say on our show, there's 3 of us. We only know 4 things, and they all start with F. Football just happens to be one of them. So, we all coached and played and love getting into the nitty gritty, but not getting too deep where it's, non-discernible. And we have a lot of fun too. So, just come check us out. I think if you watch one episode, you'll kind of get what I'm saying. For example, my brother lost a bet and had to bleach his hair blonde, and now he looks like the idiot brother of Draco Malfoy. So it's a lot of fun. We have a good time, especially this time of year, man. So it's Crane and Company, CRAIN and Company. Come check us out.
Yeah, I was definitely going to get to Ken from Barbie just as an absolute starter.
I will say it doesn't look as bad as I thought it was going to, but he literally revealed it live to us on the show. There's a reason the good Lord didn't give him blonde hair.
You know what? I'm going to plead the fifth on that one. I'll let him make that.
Well, it's probably smart.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Jake. And everyone, be sure to check out Crane and Company.
Thanks, Nick. You do a great job. Say bye, Viola. Say bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Huge thanks again to Jake Crane for coming on and helping me break down the game. It sounds like he's on Iowa State side the rest of the season, which is all we can ever ask for, right? Like, let's get more media members onto the Iowa State Cyclone bandwagon because we all know, like I said, it's up and to the right. Thank you all so much for listening to this point. If you haven't already, be sure to hit subscribe down below. We're proving it's a Cyclone State. It's completely free, and we are moving the needle just like they are going to out on the field. Rocco, Hansen, Dom Orange. All right. Iowa State's coming away with this victory, and I don't even think it's going to be close. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.